70% of IT projects are considered to be a failure by the business owners. They miss deadlines, they do not deliver on promises, and they blow the budgets.
25% of them are considered catastrophic for the business itself and are threatening the vitality of that business.
I'm Oleg, and this is Maria. Welcome to the IT Without the BS, where we talk about IT challenges to you, small business owners. If you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe. Let's go.
Where do we begin on this one? Because we said that the projects fail, but when and how do they fail?
I guess the question is, do they fail because of one specific issue, or do they fail because of accumulation of errors throughout the project implementation?
I don't think there is one particular reason they fail. I think there is a number of reasons. There is multiple opportunities for projects to fail. So how about we go through the phases and maybe cover what can go wrong and what should be done to prevent it. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good. Which phases are we talking about?
Many names, but how about we split them into preliminary, when we're prepping for a project and just making a decision that we should go ahead. Requirements phase, when we figure out what exactly we're building. Build, when things get built. Testing, go live itself. So how do we make sure that it is operational? And then how do we support it after it's become operational? So post-implementation phase.
Okay. And where does the training fall in?
Let's talk about that.
Okay, let's pretend I didn't ask that question.
Why not? That's fine. Let's go through the phases and figure out where's the best way to provide the training for the organizations. There might be multiple answers. Should we dive into preliminary phase? What can go wrong there?
A lot of things.
All right. How do the projects usually start?
Well, the business owner decided that the project, that we need to upgrade our system, get a new system, make changes to the current system. How do they usually make those decisions?
I think the way I've seen the most often, and you can comment on that too, is similar to a movie trailer. A lot of business owners somewhere meet IT vendors that show them a wonderful demo of the product, 5-minute, a few second demo, and they love it and they say, wow, this is great, I want it. But as I mentioned the movie trailer, I think it's a very similar process, because how often was it that you watch the trailer and you say, wow, this is awesome, and then you go and watch a movie and say, wow, this really sucked, and they put all the best moments into that trailer and there is nothing left to the movie itself.
Yes, I think this is absolutely right. I think you nailed it. A lot of business owners buy it based on a trailer, and there's no really clear goal in mind to achieve something at the end of this project. So when you're starting something based on the shiny cover, it is already doomed to fail.
Maybe yes and no. I think you really need to spend a little bit of time to understand what's there. I think business owners do have goals. I think business owners know that what they want to improve. Whether or not they put it on paper, whether or not they formalize it for themselves and for their IT partner, that's a question, because really the question is the project worth it? Is it going to give you the benefits that you're looking for? Is it feasible maybe to increase your productivity and save 1,000 hours for your employees? Can the system truly do that? Or are there some barriers? And is it going to pay off for the investment that you're going to be making?
You usually say, and I really like it, that software doesn't create maturity, it exposes the lack of it. So if the business is not mature, doesn't have proper processes, doesn't have documented processes, buying new software does not really create those processes. It shows that you don't have them. It actually amplifies the problem.
Usually does, yes. The term we hear quite often is a silver bullet. People get very excited about the product, a trailer they watched, right? They think that it's going to solve their problems, that it's going to improve their processes, but software never does, as you said. It just highlights whether or not you have good processes or you don't.
Well, a lot of businesses also, or business owners, they buy software based on the hope. They hope that it's going to solve their problems. They hope that it's going to be a solution to maybe inventory issue or warehousing problem or customer service problem. And it doesn't. It creates more issues as implementation goes through, and after implementation, it's the same mess in a different file, to rephrase.
So, what else have we seen failing at this stage of the project?
I think a lot of business owners are going after a solution, the shiny new toy, without really understanding the three constraints, and that's budget, scope, and timeline. Um, do you see that happening in the projects?
All
And
the
what are
time.
those constraints to you?
I think all the project managers would recognize the triple constraint that they see. And it's really simple. You cannot have all three fulfilled to the max. You always have to pick two, right? So, great example there. If you want something that's cheap and fast, you're not going to get good quality. It's just simply impossible, right? If you want something that's a good quality and you want it fast, it will be expensive. There's no way about it. You're going to have to pay, right? So you have to pick the two things as the owner, as the sponsor of the project, the person that's actually paying for the project and should benefit. You get to pick the two that are important or the balance of the three and find that middle ground.
So, what are you going to answer to the business owner that says, you know what, I want this project to be on time, on the budget, and within the scope? Because I don't think this is unrealistic expectation. So when somebody says something like that, what would you tell them?
I think it's a conversation, right? It's an important conversation that business owners need to have with their IT vendors to make sure that both sides have clear understanding of scope, right? So there's no assumptions made there and no constraint. And then the timelines that ideally business owner wants to accomplish and fit the project into. And then the vendor needs to have an opportunity to say how much that's going to cost realistically. Now that's on the vendor, right? And what we also see fairly often, which by the way is a good practice to ask more than one vendor, obviously, and shop around, right? If you have that opportunity, people tend to pick the cheapest. And that's not always the case. What I would recommend for the business owners is to really spend time in this preliminary phase and not try to rush it, but understand why certain offers are cheaper than the others, because the devil is always in the details at this phase. And whatever you agree to with your vendor in this phase, before you sign the contract, what's in that contract is going to make or break the project.
Okay, but if you've got the vendor that showed you a demo of the product and you like the product, how do you go and shop that around? Because yes, there may be some other vendors that sell the same product, but there may not be. There may be, this very often what we see is um, the product is presented by the manufacturer of the software, and there is really no other vendor that will sell you the same product. So how do you shop that around?
Well, I think you just mentioned two cases. One is the case where there is a product and there are multiple resellers of that particular product or implementers that you can go and reach out to. Or there's a particular product and there is no resellers, but what quite often is happening in the niche that that product plays, there's more than one product available. So a good idea would also be to not only look at one product that you absolutely love the demo for right away, but see if there is any equivalent or similar products out there. Look at those demos and then compare which one you like the most.
So do you compare the products or do you compare vendors as well?
Both. You should be, you need to try and figure out if the product that you're trying to purchase is what your organization needs, and whether or not the vendor that you're signing the contract with is going to deliver a good work. It's and not or.
Do you go to the vendor with the list of things that you want to accomplish?
Yes. Things, goals you want to achieve, right? The timelines, the budgets that you may have. A good vendor would spend some time with you at this phase of the project to try and understand a little bit more about your business. To me, if you see a vendor that just says, we're not going to spend any time with you trying to understand who you are, this is the product for your industry, this is it, and we're going to do that later in a phase, that's probably not a good sign at this stage of the project.
So does this mean that this is one of the most important phases of the project? Because it sounds like you need to spend quite a lot of time doing this homework and doing your preliminary research before you even commit to the project.
That's the ideal, yes, because a lot of things can be prevented if enough research is done up front.
What would you say the top 3, 4 things that the business owners need to look when we are starting or just thinking about the project?
Identify the measures of success. So, what are you actually trying to accomplish? How you're going to know that you're there? What are you going to measure? Make sure you have the baselines, because if you don't, then you can't really say if you improved anything or not. Do your homework. Spend the time, don't cut the corners, and make sure you have that alignment with your IT vendor. Anything else you want to add?
I would say that you need to look at your business and understand if your business has enough people resources to execute the project and monetary resources, because I would budget extra 20-30% to each budget to go over budget. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that it works. You always find things that you want to do and as the project moves along.
Or you haven't realized that they were not in scope. All right, enough for the first phase. So what happens after we sign the contract? Do we just say, hey, IT vendor, go and build my thing, and I'll just wait here for you and do nothing?
Well, it's one of the mistakes that small business owners make. They skip this extremely important phase of requirements gathering, and they either trust the vendor completely to implement the system, or they don't want to spend time on this because it is also a very time-consuming and resource-consuming phase. So skipping it is mistake number one that we see in a lot of implementations.
Yes, I can throw in even more statistics. So if we go back to our 70%, about 70% of the project actually fail because of absence of requirements or errors in the requirements. So what are the requirements? Maybe we should start there. There are the things that the software or the product needs to do, right? It's what you want to see in your implementation.
Yeah, it's what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to get the software to do at the end of this whole process.
And how. This is your chance to actually learn your software in more details, get a little bit more in-depth demos, understand how the software is designed to handle certain processes, because that could be completely different from how your organization has been managing those processes up till now.
You don't want to order a t-shirt without specifying the color and size.
Yeah.
You don't want to order a t-shirt without understanding how you're going to wear it, because it's not only color and size, but it's also the performance of the t-shirt. There is polyester, there's cotton, there is sport t-shirts and or shirts. you need to understand how this t-shirt is going to be used, and that's your requirement gathering. Color and size are nice, but also the performance of the item, the garment, that is extremely important.
What if someone in the organization, because there's multiple users of your software there's going to be in your once it's built, right? By the way, you do need to involve your end users in this process, because people that are going to be using it then have those requirements that need to be heard. Otherwise, they're just going to kill the project once it gets to them. So involve them early. But what happens if you have one person in your organization that thinks that the t-shirt should be yellow, and the other person in the organization who thinks that t-shirt needs to be gray?
Well, essentially, I think it all boils down what your business needs. It's not about what this specific person. So somebody needs to be a tiebreaker to decide which t-shirt we're going to be ordering based on the business needs, and that's usually the business owner. Um, if the business owner is one of the two that want different t-shirts, I guess he's going to win with the color that he wants.
But hopefully there's some logic behind it, right? So maybe the t-shirt cannot be light because there's a chance that you're going to be getting dirty, and maybe it's less visible on the gray. I know,
Or
wonderful
the
example.
corporate colors are involved, right?
Yeah, and that trumps everything. Yeah.
So having those discussions with the users is uh, absolutely paramount. But how often do you see the business owner that says, you know what, I have this IT guy that will tell you how our business operates? And
All the time.
there is a huge risk that's associated with that statement. Do you want to unpack that?
Of course, yeah. Well, ultimately, the IT guy does have a stake in a project if you have an IT guy or girl or gal. Um, but they're not going to be the end users of the product. They're going to be supporting it, probably, maybe. That's actually a good question. What their role is going to be once the project is complete compared to the vendor that you're engaged with. You should have an answer to that one. But they're not going to be people that live and breathe the system and how it works. If it's going to be different people in your organization, they need to be involved.
There is business requirements and there's the technology requirements as well. Security, there is a whole bunch of things that need to be discussed. Maybe there is an integration with another system, and that's where you involve your IT guy in. But in the discussions with the users, if the users cannot specify what they want and they refer to the IT guy because supposedly he knows better or she knows better, that is one of the little warning bells that you should really take seriously and maybe look at that process beforehand, um, to sort. Maybe there's some training involved that needs to happen before you even start this project. So you do a lot of requirement gathering. Um, how deep do you need to go in those requirements? What's a little too much or too little, and where do you kind of stop? Like those three bears, right?
That could be a whole separate podcast for sure. But to be concise, it needs to be detailed enough so that you give the vendor the information on what needs to be configured, and it needs to be full, but it shouldn't be overwhelming, and it shouldn't be to the level of details where it becomes unfeasible. And maybe I can illustrate that with an example. A few years back, I've been working for a fairly large organization. I think at the time it was valued at about 2 billion, so it was pretty big. But the owner was extremely involved with the product that we were building, with the software, was very passionate about it, which is wonderful, right? It's always good when you do have that commitment and passion from the owner, but sometimes it gets you too far, because that particular owner was sitting in every design session with us and discussing the details to the point, or after this click, if something goes wrong, I want this kind of error message to show up on the screen, and I want it to be in this color, and I want it to be here. That was too much. Clearly, because, well, first of all,
Paralyzing.
it's paralyzing. You're going to be stuck in that phase forever, and you will blow your budget with your IT vendor. And two, sometimes those things are simply not feasible. to do, or will make your implementation way more important. Depending on what kind of relationships you have with your vendors, you need to be able to listen to them when they tell you that, well, if you want this requirement to be implemented, then it's going to add X amount of dollars to your project. Maybe we can do it slightly differently, which would still meet 80% of your need, or maybe your need. It may not look exactly the same as what you're describing to me right now, but it will do the job. And you need to be open to having those conversations with your vendor.
On an opposite side, if the owner disappears after the kickoff meeting, what do we have here? It's not going to be a successful project because it's going to be chaos. There is nobody driving the bus, and there is nobody directing the project in the right, or making those decisions, tiebreakers, which t-shirt we're buying, which color do we need. So there has to be always a balance between a little bit too much and a little bit too little. And the owners need to really understand their role into this. Same applies to the key business users, because we need time to get this project off the ground, and we need people's involvement. So the time must be allocated.
If you want a quality product, if you care about what you're going to get, you don't want a surprise at the end that may or may not work, you should allocate resources, you should allocate time, and you also should go back to your measurement of success that we mentioned in the previous phase, because people may want different things. People may want a yellow t-shirt, but may not be aligned or getting you any closer to achieving the result that you're looking for. Then the question is, should we even do it? If it's not getting us anywhere closer to where we want to get, maybe that's something that you shouldn't be spending the money on and implementing, or at least not in the first phase.
Well, we always like to say that if the requirements or success criteria are not written in a plain English, then this project is already dead. Where we've got nowhere to go, because we need to identify, everybody needs to agree on. We don't need to have a room full of people that are sitting and nodding because they don't understand, and they're afraid to speak up. You've been in those situations. How often does that happen?
Fairly often, right? For various reasons. Either people are not comfortable with speaking up, but that comfort level and accountability for the result needs to be present for the project to go well. And it's on the owner to make sure that everybody understands and the correct environment is created to facilitate to have those honest conversations.
So in your example, where the owner was micromanaging the project and specifying all the errors, how do you, as the IT vendor, what do you expect from IT vendor to break this circle of owner being micromanaging and getting other users involved? Because when owner is micromanaging, everybody else is staying silent. They're not voicing their opinions, even though they have them. Every single person in that room thinks something. So what would be your approach to breaking this silence?
Having an honest conversation with the owner. Not in front of everybody, obviously, but having a side conversation to make sure that the concern is raised and that the owner understands the implications if he or she continues that way. And the result will be either owner says it's okay, we'll still continue this way, or the owner will say, no, maybe I will involve my people more and step back. But the implications need to be clear.
Well, isn't this the conversation that you need to have really before you gather the requirements?
Ideally, yes, but there is still a chance that you will need to course correct throughout the project. So having that open line of communication, that need doesn't go away. It stays for the duration of the whole project and even after.
So if you discuss with the owner prior to starting it, just say, hey, here's my expectation. We want to hear from your people. We want to hear from every one of you. how can we create this environment that where everybody is comfortable speaking up, everybody can, their voice can be heard, and we can understand them and they can understand us, because every business is a little bit different, and owner is probably the best one who will say, hey, this is the way to deal with my staff. Maybe, we'll do a couple pizza lunches where we can all know each other. Do you have any suggestions, ideas, how you usually do this icebreakers?
Oh, there's plenty of icebreakers. Yes, making people comfortable, making sure that both sides get to know each other is great. Sometimes when you're having those requirements gathering sessions, it's as simple as asking the owner to step out and not be there, right? It doesn't mean that the owner doesn't get to see the results. It just means that people are comfortable having an open conversation, and then whoever is in charge of collecting requirements can be actually on both sides, either vendor or the client, brings all of those requirements together for the review for everybody, and then everybody has an opportunity to comment. But at least those conversations were held.
I wanted to touch base on one question, because very often we see, um, when the project starts, there is a lot of uncomfortable decisions that need to be made, because essentially you're changing some processes. Some people may not be happy. And the regular tendency of people is to delay those uncomfortable decisions as far as possible, push it down the line. Um, is there any ways of overcoming this problem?
Cannot let the wound fester.
So, would you write them down on the board?
Well, you keep track of those things. You need to make sure that you don't forget them. You don't leave the elephant in the room. Um, that you have still maintain a joint understanding of the things that need to be discussed. So mechanism can be either document your assumptions throughout this process, or maybe say that we're going to get back to that topic later. We call it a parking lot, but it still needs to be visible to the whole project team that those things have not been settled on.
So, when you mentioned the parking lot, can be an area of a whiteboard, which you just separate from the rest of it, and you call it a parking lot, where you put issues that still need resolutions. So you just very simply put them bullet points. Everybody can see them. Everybody knows that they're there, and you make it very clear that we cannot complete this phase until we get this parking lot cleared out.
Yeah, it's however you want to document it. If you're in the same location and there is a whiteboard, you can leverage the whiteboard. If you are more remote and geographically distributed, you can maintain a list of decisions, for example, that still need to be made for your project. Hey, our wonderful Excel is very helpful there too, or any other mechanisms, but you need to write them down. I don't think we mentioned the statistics that actually for every dollar that it would cost you to fix a misunderstanding on an issue at this phase, it will cost you at least $30 to fix it when the product is actually built. So I think that should tell everybody how important this phase is, because it's going to cost you so much more to address the issues later. How can we summarize that phase? The extremely important phase of the project.
Allocate time to the requirements gathering. If this would be number
Don't
one.
skip it.
Don't skip it.
Don't skip it.
Make sure the requirements are in plain English. Work with your IT partner to go through this phase in the most comfortable way to get the voice of your people. Make sure everybody's heard, everybody had a hand in creation of it, because you're getting early buy-in from your staff, and that is a huge factor of the success of the project at the end.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. Totally unbiased opinion.
Well, as a business analyst, yes, you have absolutely unbiased opinion on this.